Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Now it is 15 minutes to 8, and at 15 to 8, Dubbo Mayor Matthew Dickerson. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kerry. I'm freezing away here in Dubbo. How are you going down there in Bathurst?
Yeah, but no, you got a heat wave though. You've got -2. we got down about -6 this morning.
Oh.
It's been very, very foggy and stuff like that, so it's been an interesting Bathurst wintry day.
Sounds like it. So warm things up, I say.
Now, what's happening in the Dubbo area?
Well, a few interesting things, Kerry. The rugby championships we had on over the long weekend, $1.8 million from the under-14s male and females in Dubbo on that weekend. So that was a really good weekend, and it wasn't so cold that weekend, so it was good for playing rugby. But one of the things that's interesting, there's been a bit of chat lately. We've had a brief chat about it before. The latest crime data has just come out. This is the information from Boxar. Now, you may remember there were some people calling for things like curfews and maybe having a crime summit and all sorts of things because the crime supposedly was through the roof and out of control and it was absolutely terrible. Well, I actually said at the time, let's base it on some data rather than just my friend got broken into, therefore it must be out of control. And the data's come in, and this is data, every 3 months they release the data from Boxar, which is the Bureau of Crime Statistics and Research. And it's actually been quite interesting. Motor vehicle theft, which is one thing that people talked a lot about, across the entire state, that's gone up by 4.6%. But in Dubbo, it only went up by 0.3%. So it wasn't quite as bad. Sure, I'd still prefer to see it going down, Kerry, but it wasn't quite as bad as people thought. The other one that people were really worried about was break and enter. So people having their houses broken into across the state. It went up by 1.2%, but in Dubbo it went down by 6.5%. So even though I'd love to see zero crime, Kerry, there is crime. That's a reality we have to face every day, unfortunately. But it wasn't as bad as maybe Facebook, maybe social media made out to be. And I think the police are doing a pretty good job keeping a pretty good handle on all of it.
I was going to say that. I think, I think we underestimate the work done by police in lots of cases, and the fact that they do work very hard under sometimes very difficult circumstances. And, and I think they're, let's be honest, they're not right on top of it, but I think, to a certain extent they're on top of it.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the things that I often hear from the community is a bit of frustration when people are caught doing things and then they basically breeze through the court system. Now, I'm not making any commentary here on magistrates or on the sentencing processes, but it does seem to be a bit of community feedback that the punishment doesn't always seem to match the crime. And it's a fine line, I think, for magistrates. They want to keep them out of prison because putting them in prison is a sure way for them to not really change their behaviour, but then you want to keep the community safe. So it's a pretty fine line they have to dance along there. So anyway, look, I think in general we've got agencies working together trying to reduce those crime levels, and it seems to be working okay at this stage, although we'd like to see it go down even further.
Yeah. Fair enough. What else is happening, sir?
Well, we had the Philippine Independence Day flag raising ceremony and dinner on Saturday. We had the Vice Consul out here, Francis Louisa Clearfass, was in Dubbo for the weekend. And that's a really interesting process. 125th Philippine Independence Day, that was. And we've got a pretty big Filipino community here in Dubbo. And I do really like learning about other cultures, other communities, having the dinner. I had a go at their dancing with bamboo sticks, those ones where you see them dancing. You're sure you're going to break an ankle during that. I didn't break an ankle. My ankle got a bit of a beating from the bamboo sticks, but I didn't end up breaking an ankle, so that was not too bad. But look, it's also, I suppose, just that way that we learn about all these different areas that come and want to settle in regions like Dubbo and Bathurst. You get to learn about all these different cultures, I think is really exciting.
Yeah, very much so. And just one quick note, I know we have discussed this before. Wellington sewage work, where are we with that at the moment?
That's right, Kerry. Always work being done on our different assets, different infrastructure assets around Dubbo and Wellington. But residents of Maxwell Street may already be aware of it, but we're doing some works on the sewer assets around that area. Between the hours of 7 a.m. and 5 p.m, Monday to Friday, and Saturday between 8 and 1 p.m. There'll be various works carried out there. There'll be some minor traffic disruptions, but just leave yourself a few more minutes if you live around that Maxwell Street area or you're going to use Maxwell Street in Wellington, just to make sure you can get around some of those traffic disruptions if they are in play when you're going along that particular area. The other thing that we had last week was the National General Assembly. Ran into your mayor down there in Canberra, so that's always an interesting event in Canberra. You've got 537 councils across the state across the nation that all converge on Canberra for a few days there. Anthony Albanese came along, had a chat to us. A few other ministers came along to a dinner and some of the events during the week. So that was a really good chance to hear about things that are happening, but also to catch up with each other and just discuss where things are headed at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's all much of the same though, isn't it, too?
Yeah, a little bit like that. It's something that I think housing is certainly an issue. That was something across the board. There was a little bit of discussion about crime, but discussion about getting people out to regional areas, trying to work out better ways, because we've got lots of employers that want to have the employees in jobs at the moment, but how do you let them know about that? How do we get people to come and fill those jobs? So a lot of common areas for discussion there. Saul Griffith gave a fascinating discussion about renewables, about climate change, and just about some of the actions that we can take, and had some great data to back up some of that discussion. So it's always interesting just to sit around and talk to other people and see how things are going. Drug rehab, bit of talk about drug rehab facilities in Dubbo at the moment. We're asking the state government to change the location. They've announced location in Dubbo, but it's also interesting to talk to other council areas about some of the action happening around drug rehab facilities, talking about crime and trying to keep people out of jail. That was an interesting discussion with other council areas to see what's happening in those areas as well. So it's always good to compare notes with other mayors and other council areas across the entire nation.
Thank you, sir, for your time. Appreciate it again.
Always my pleasure, Kerry.
Have a good week. There we go. There's another mayor.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickinson from Dubbo Regional Council.